music!
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy. Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pans will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs it close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last.
There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? I mean, come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. Sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
Yeah, you gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. And racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner, perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we're prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing, That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Greetings again, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the hot seat, ready for the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1991. And after the brilliant pre-qualifying race that we had, it's definitely going to be a nail-biter for the 10th race of the 1991 season. Just 7 races to go at the end of this one. It's definitely going to be a very intriguing battle as the season continues to develop. Obviously, Ayrton Senna sitting out of this race in the Porsche Williams due to an injury to his heel, and that unfortunately means he will miss this one race. Alain Prost, of course, is out of the seat permanently, having been given a 3-race ban by the officials after the German Grand Prix for falsifying testimony to the stewards. He then promptly threw a hissy fit, as one journalist has put it, and announced his immediate retirement from Grand Prix racing, although apparently he has been speaking to nobody but French teams for 1992, which I suppose on paper eliminates everybody except for Renault, the new Peugeot team that is going to come in for 1992, and then also the likes of Ligier and Larousse. But obviously, we will get into the nitty-gritty of the silly season, usually around about the Belgian Grand Prix, which is the race after this one. So I'm sure those sort of interesting developments are going to come out of the wash. For now, though, Nigel Mansell has put the Ferrari on pole position alongside Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, and then Martin Brundle in the Benetton alongside Alessandro Nannini in the second of the McLaren cars. Mika Hakkinen alongside Johnny Herbert, who is substituting for Senna this weekend in the Williams. Michael Schumacher in the Ferraris alongside Derek Warwick in the Lotus. Then Nelson Piquet in his potentially penultimate race for Arrows alongside Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and then Gilles de Ferran in the second Williams alongside Eddie Irvine in the Ligier, Arie Luyendyk in the Arrows, and Riccardo Patrese in his Ligier. And then Rubens Barrichello in the Tyrrell is alongside Michele Alboreto in the Lotus, way back in the 8th row. Mark Blundell is alongside New Brabham driver Emmanuel Collard, Andy Wallace in the Jordan alongside Eddie Cheever in the Ford. Then Adrian Fernandez, his teammate, alongside Naoki Hattori in the Honda. Hiro Matsushita alongside Carl Wendlinger in the second Jordan. And on the back row of the grid, it is Stefano Modena and Mauricio Gugelmin in the Lolas, who were given a back of the grid penalty at the end of the German Grand Prix weekend. So it is the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell in pole position alongside the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. This will be a fascinating battle. Martin Brundle still yet to win his first Grand Prix. Certainly showed he had what it takes at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Johnny Herbert was in a Benetton last time out, now in a Williams. Let's race at the Hungaroring, and it's a terrible start for the Ferrari of Mansell. Nannini charges forward from the second row of the grid in the McLaren as he fights his way further forward. So Nannini hits the front, then the Ferrari of Mansell in front of Berger and the reigning world champion Mika Hakkinen. Blundell's out already! What's happened to Mark Blundell? We're going to have a replay of the start, and we see, oh, the Benetton's actually gone up in the air. My goodness, what a dramatic start to this race then for Mark Blundell. That's big damage to the front right. So Mark Blundell out of this race. We're going to need to see a couple of looks at this, I think. So on with Mark Blundell. Oh my goodness, he actually launches in a big landing for the Benetton. That has not gone well at all for the British driver. He's only just come back from injury as well. So for him to have another big incident, Mark Blundell, let's see, right on board. Oh, it was the Lotus in front that got into the hot water, and Blundell had nowhere to go, couldn't react in time. So Blundell goes into the back of Michele Alboreto's Lotus, I think it was. We'll double check it one more time. It was Alboreto. He nudged the back of the Tyrrell. I think that is of Rubens Barrichello. And unfortunately, it was Mark Blundell who took a real hammer blow on the start. Very unfortunate indeed for the Englishman, who's only just managed to get back into that Benetton car again after an injury, so hopefully that hasn't exacerbated the problem. But certainly Mark Blundell in big difficulties already. Nannini is your leader, then Mansell, Berger, Hakkinen, Brundle, Warwick and Johnny Herbert in the Williams in front of Eddie Irvine and Nelson Piquet, with Michael Schumacher's Ferrari way down in 10th, not having the best of races so far, the German. So Alessandro Nannini working his way through the chicane. This is exactly what the Italian was hoping for. And as we can see, Alboretto's got some damage to his Lotus after him going slightly up in the air as well. Looks to me as though he's okay in essence, but certainly a very difficult start as Nannini is out in front of Mansell, then Berger, then Hakkinen and Brundle. Derek Warwick in the Lotus trying to keep the team in the top 6. His teammate Michele Alboretto, who of course won the French and British Grand Prix this year, way down at the back end of the field. And Ayrton Senna, multiple Grand Prix winner, sat on the sidelines watching. He's been in the paddock this weekend watching his team, but certainly hasn't been driving, as Gerhard Berger's lining up Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. He's got an opportunity here, and Berger is going to dive through. Dave Goddard, team principal of the McLaren team, alongside Ron Dennis, will be having kittens. Nannini is leading, Berger is second, and the McLarens are 1 and 2. A terrific start for the team from Woking. Having an excellent display so far. It's really looking very positive indeed for the team. As Rubens Barrichello in the Red Bull Tyrrell, still having a good race of it. Michele Alboretto peels into the pits. And this is going to be one of the longest races of the season in terms of time. There's 77 laps around this place. It's not the easiest of race circuits to negotiate in terms of the full race distance. We're going to get nearly to 2 hours here. So it's definitely going to be a bit of a tricky one for all of the drivers. But they're definitely going to give us a very exciting run. So there is your man in second position, Gerhard Berger. Having a really exciting battle at the moment. Certainly enjoying life in the leading battle for the victory. So we're going to see some absolutely sensational performances out there from the crews. But it is McLaren 1 and 2. Mansell in third in the Ferrari. Berger sets the fastest lap of the race at 1:18.2. 77 laps of this place. It does take a while as Michael Schumacher dives in up the inside there of Piquet, and he passes the 3-time world champion as Gil de Ferran, the Brazilian, has got up the inside of the Mexican Adrian Fernandez, and that's put him up into 13th position. So a very exciting start to proceedings as Barrichello in the Red Bull Tyrrell still trying to work his way further forward. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, his teammate of course, and several drivers are going to work their way further forward. Obviously, Jean Alesi still out of the Tyrrell until the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Several teams, of course, waiting till Italy to get their regular drivers back in the car. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari, still hunting down Gerhard Berger, hoping for a chance as he looks for an opportunity, trying to make his moves. But an excellent opportunity here for young Nigel Mansell going into the hairpin. So young Nigel Mansell, he's been in Formula 1 now since 1980. But he's still pushing very hard, still wants to make his presence felt, and still feels he's got what it takes to be a world champion. And with the Ferrari in the current form, he just needs a bit of consistency because he's not been the one to score most of the points for the team this year. That's been his young German teammate Schumacher. Here comes Gilles de Ferran in the Porsche Williams, up the inside of Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier, and he goes through. 12th position for him. So very neat and tidy as he gets through into 12th position. Nigel Mansell still charging after Berger in the McLaren as the team are running first and second here. Here's Derek Warwick. He's going to make his bid for Mika Hakkinen in the Brains Brabham. Interesting comments in the press from Mika Hakkinen. He says he's trying to pitch with his manager to go for one of the big three, is what he stated. He was pushed for who are the big three, and it was later stated as being Williams, Ferrari or McLaren. So Nigel Mansell won't want to give up a Ferrari seat, that's for sure. The team looking very strong and very positive at this point in proceedings. Michael Schumacher is on the charge to come forward in his Ferrari. Made a mistake there, though. Doesn't want to fall back into the clutches of Piquet if he can help it. So certainly having an interesting time of it, young Michael Schumacher. Looking very competitive at the moment in his Ferrari as he swarms all over the back of Eddie Irvine, the Ligier driver. As he comes off the final turn, there's Fernandez trying to close up on Riccardo Patrese in the Ligier. And now this is the chance for Barrichello, trying to get through on the inside of Fernandez. So Barrichello is going to make the move on the Ford. As we know, the Ford team is, of course, going to become the Aston Martin team next season. That's the brand they will run in 1992. Returning not just the Aston Martin... Oh, that's Martin Brundle! What does he have to do? The Benetton team are out before the end of lap 5. Blundell out with a crash on the start, and Martin Brundle mechanical problems in the Benetton. And that is game over for the Benetton crew. Wow, you've got to feel for team principal Lucy Ball-Wood. That is a very short Hungarian Grand Prix indeed for her and the squad. So Berger, 1.5 seconds back from Nannini, who's clearly on a very aggressive strategy up front. And the McLarens are first and second, Ferrari in third, then the Lotus of Derek Warwick in fourth position. And that looks like Fernandez has got an issue. Oh, big incident! Fernandez gets struck there by his own teammate, I think. So Fernandez pulling out of the race anyway, but his own teammate Chiva has hit him. So I would suspect there could be a bit of a fallout at the end of the race between the Ford drivers, because Chiva having a big issue there with Fernandez, who is pulling off the road as Piquet now dives up the inside of Irvine and gets the overtaking move. Nicely balanced there. Nelson Piquet having a very steady race of it as Mansell closes in on Berger. So Mansell trying to make this all come his way. Working his magic in behind Gerhard Berger in the McLaren. Trying to work his way forward. Is there going to be an opportunity now to get back on terms with the McLaren in front of him? He's really starting to make inroads into Berger. But this is going to be a race of attrition, I've got a feeling, because already we have 3 retirements in the first 6 laps. As Nannini in the McLaren having a very tidy start to his race, but the Italian looking very comfortable and very smooth out in the lead of the race. He's obviously taken a lot of confidence from winning in Germany, and here he is, the Italian, hoping to continue that march forward. What if Alessandro Nannini could captain the McLaren charge moving forward? Certainly Gerhard Berger has not quite been able to get his act together in quite the same way in this beginning of the second half of the season as Alessandro Nannini seems to have done. But there's still plenty to talk about on that front. Frentzen up the inside now of Irvine as Mansell loses ground there to Berger. He made a bit of a mistake by the look of it. So that has definitely not come out looking good for Mansell. So now he's got to try and make up some of the ground there. That's definitely not gone according to plan as far as he and the team are concerned. So obviously it's been a very tricky race battle so far for everybody in the battle for proceedings, but it's been pole position twice for Gerhard Berger, every other time for Ayrton Senna in the Porsche Williams, other than this time, of course, because Senna's not driving. And the pole position on this occasion went to the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell, their first pole position of the season. And obviously Gerhard Berger is now third in the Drivers' Championship. He has 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and a 4th place. Those are the best results, really, for the McLaren driver this year, as well as 2 fastest laps, of course, at the very start of the season. But Alessandro Nannini has had a fair crack at the whip for point scores. He's had a win, 2 seconds, a third, and 3 7th places, as well as a point for 10th place. The only race he's failed to finish this year, Alessandro Nannini, is actually the Canadian Grand Prix. Every other time, he has finished in the points. So Nannini, who is now a point ahead of Michael Schumacher in the championship, definitely showcasing some speed and skill. So Nannini leads the way. Berger in 2nd place. 3rd is Mansell. Then Warwick, Hakkinen, Herbert doing a good job in the Williams. And then Schumacher 7th in front of Piquet, Frentzen and Irvine. Then De Ferran in the 2nd of the Williams cars finds himself in 11th position ahead of his countryman Rubens Barrichello. Worth talking about the Constructors' Championship at this stage of the season, because obviously that's worth keeping an eye on. In the rookie tables, there are 2 Brazilians battling for the top honour of top Brazilian. It was just 1 now, as Rubens Barrichello is having a big problem, and he's lost ground there to Patrese. So Barrichello, the 19-year-old rookie, pushing hard. He has 20 points scored from his first 5 appearances in Grand Prix racing. But last time out, Gilles de Ferran, in his Grand Prix debut, came home in 2nd place in the Williams. So, very interesting to see how the rookie battle has been continuing through the season. But certainly in terms of the Constructors' Championship, McLaren currently have the lead with 119 points over Ferrari, who are 15 points behind them. And then 29 points behind them is currently the Porsche Williams team, looking very hungry in third position. Then Lotus, Ligier, Red Bull Tyrrell, Brabham in 7th, and then Benetton, MasterCard Lola, and the Arrows Adidas Grand Prix team. Adidas recently deciding to pull the plug on their partnership with Arrows for next year. But it'll be fascinating to see how things continue to progress. Ford, of course, have got themselves into the hunt to become a permanent top 10 team for next season, because Lola have already announced they're not going to be competing next year. So 11th in the Constructors' Championship will actually get through to the top 10 next year. And that is currently Ford, because they have 4 points on the board, thanks to their 7th place finish at the French Grand Prix. So that has really given Ford a massive boost in terms of points scored. Lamborghini has 2 points. Coloni has 1. And of course, the Honda team have had all of their results for Ukko Katayama earlier this season excluded. So they lost the championship point they scored earlier in the year. So the Honda team have really got to bounce back and find something special in the second half of the season. There is Mansell, third position behind Nannini and Berger. Still, Ferrari continuing to pound on the pressure and come up with some very strong performances. It's going to be a tricky race for them to hold on to their current form, because they've got pressure from all 4 corners of this race circuit. Schumacher has caught up to Johnny Herbert, by the way. And having got past Piquet, having got past Frentzen in the Tyrrell, he's now going to be going after Johnny Herbert in the Porsche Williams. He's obviously substituting for Ayrton Senna for this race, with Senna having a bad heel that he sustained in a big accident at Turn 1 at the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim a few weeks ago. So Nannini hanging it out in the lead of this race in front of Gerhard Berger. McLarens are 1 and 2, with Mansell in 3rd position, Warwick in 4th, Hakkinen in 5th position in the Brabham, which, considering the team are currently 7th in the Constructors' Championship, Hakkinen has really been punching above his weight. But the Brabham team have, of course, won a Grand Prix this year, courtesy of Alain Prost at Monaco. And he did make a statement in the press this year. He said earlier this year, he said, "I hope my win at Monaco is not going to be my last in Grand Prix racing." But apparently he is only reportedly talking to French teams for next year, despite having already said he's not going to be competing in Grand Prix racing next year. He basically announced his retirement. I don't know how serious he is about it. But we've come to learn in the Grand Prix World Championship that whatever happens off the sidelines for Alain Prost, you kind of have to take with a pinch of salt. He doesn't always speak his mind, he just speaks from the heart. Berger, 2.2 seconds back from his teammate Alessandro Nannini, but he's pulled out 2.6 on this man, Nigel Mansell, 3rd position in the Ferrari. Still having a very solid race of things up in the front as Eddie Cheever struggles in the sole remaining Eurobrunn Ford. So he's got the Jordan just in behind him. I believe that's Andy Wallace, who was so strong in the pre-qualifying battle. They certainly worked their tactics to perfection and managed to get the car further forward. They're just behind the Frenchman Emmanuel Collard, who's in the Brabham. And of course, Collard is in his first ever Grand Prix, replacing Alain Prost. Having been the team's test driver, he now steps up into a race seat. With Prost gone, they've actually promoted Manuel Reuter to a testing contract for the remainder of the 1991 season. Manuel Reuter, of course, being assessed for an opportunity to go racing in 1992. Now, there's going to be some interesting testing going on mid-season, which is going to give the test drivers a chance to get behind the wheel of their race cars. So we'll get to see the sort of the lap times that they come up with over the course of the coming weeks as well. That'll be in and around the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, and that will obviously give teams a little bit of impetus to assess what they want to do for not just the end of 1991, but also for 1992 as well. But the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell just keeping it nice and tidy at the moment, keeping it there in 3rd position, as Gerhard Berger continues in the McLaren, having a great race of it in 2nd position. Here's Barrichello, the teenage talent in the Red Bull Tyrrell. Obviously, we now know that the Red Bull Tyrrell team is actually going to do something rather dramatic for 1992. They're going to bring the Repco name back to Grand Prix racing for the first time in almost 3 decades. And the Repco engine is going to go into the back of the Red Bull Tyrrell. They're going to build their first Formula 1 engine for quite some time. And it's going to be a collaborative partnership between Repco and Tyrrell. It'll be quite an amazing opportunity for them. There's Hiro Matsushita, the Japanese driver, who is only going to be in the car for one race more, the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa, and then apparently he is going to move aside for Aguri Suzuki to get back into the car. They've had to completely shake up their driver lineup mid-season, the Honda team. Not that they're particularly pleased about it, but they've not really had much choice. They've had a force majeure. So Nannini and Berger, first and second places, then Mansell, Warwick, Hakkinen, Herbert, Schumacher, Frentzen and Piquet, and then Gilles de Ferran from Irvine and Barrichello, and then Patrese, Lundijk and Emmanuel Collard. I was watching a young lad called Rob Collard at the side of the British motor racing scene, and he seems to have a lot of talent towards him. Alessandro Nannini out in the McLaren, 2.3 seconds in front of Gerhard Berger. Still having a very solid race of it. Warwick is about 12 seconds back from Alessandro Nannini at this point. So still having a very productive race of it so far. And we're going to continue to see some amazing performances from these contenders as the drivers continue to put in a great showing. So there is Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, still chasing after Alessandro Nannini. Mansell in third in the Ferrari. Warwick is fourth in the Lotus. Then Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham in fifth place. Johnny Herbert's Williams still in front of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. Schumacher can't seem to find a way to get through at the moment. Then Frentzen, Piquet, and de Ferran, who is looking at the final points position in the second Williams at the moment. Then Irvine, Barrichello, Patrese, Ari Lundijk, as Naoki Hattori is making a very easy pass into turn one. I think that was Eddie Cheever. I wonder if the Ford Eurobrun is going to pull off the circuit any moment now. And they're obviously working very hard on that Ford Works engine. Apparently the Ford HQ, the sort of the CEOs of the brand, have been in and around the paddock several times this year, thinking we know what we're doing, we know how to build cars, we know how to go racing. And apparently there's been some frustrations, but there is Eddie Cheever going slowly in the Ford Eurobrun. So that is a real problem for them. They really need to be having a little bit more form. So Mansell, still within about 6 seconds of Alessandro Nannini in the lead. You can still win a Grand Prix from there. Derek Warwick in the Lotus is struggling to stay with that leading trio now, though. So this is where it becomes a little bit more back to reality to a certain extent for Derek Warwick. Still trying to move further forward, but Nannini in front of Berger, Mansell, Warwick and Mika Hakkinen. Then Johnny Herbert in front of Michael Schumacher. Frentzen in 8th, Piquet is 9th, and Gilles de Ferran is in 10th place in front of Irvine, Barrichello, Patrese, Lundijk, and then it is Emmanuel Collard, the French driver. Apparently he is being courted for a semi-permanent role within a Renault team. It's not been determined whether it's the Renault team, but obviously being a Renault contracted driver, he is the kind of driver who's obviously going to be placed with a team that has a Renault engine for next year. He's certainly served his purpose at Brabham. But, electrical problems. Well, that has caused a real headache yet again at the worst possible moment for the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, I do believe. Oh no, that's it's the McLaren of Gerhard Berger. I do apologise. So Mansell goes through, but Gerhard Berger, yet more problems to strike the McLaren driver. That couldn't really have happened at a worse time from his point of view. But certainly a very tricky scenario, very difficult situation as far as Berger is concerned. That really puts him on the back foot. So the Austrian definitely with work to do now, as he will come out of the pits, out of the points. So that promotes Mansell to second, and this man, Derek Warwick, to third in the Lotus Renault. So the Lotus team still not decided what they're going to do for next year, but they are quite aggrieved by Renault's decision to buy out the Reynard team mid-season and go racing themselves. That was not in the game book, apparently, of what Renault were hoping, or certainly alluding that they were going to do. They made it clear, apparently, to Lotus that they were going to be the ipso facto works outfit, and it hasn't worked out that way through the season. However, they've still provided 2 Grand Prix wins for the Renault engine. Valuable research ahead of 1992. So Nannini, 6.4 seconds clear of the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell here at the Hungaroring. Derek Warwick in third, Mika Häkkinen in fourth now from Herbert, Schumacher, Frentzen, Piquet in the Arrows, De Ferran in the second Williams, and then Eddie Irvine in 10th position in the Ligier. So there is Derek Warwick through turn 1 in the Lotus, trying to cement a podium if he can hold it together. We haven't even got to the first stage of the pit stops really yet. But Gerhard Berger, I can tell you, has rejoined after his little hiccup and has rejoined in 12th position. It's about to become 11th, though, as he dives up the inside of Rubens Barrichello to get into P11 in the Tyrrell. So that'll do nicely for the Austrian. Gerhard Berger in the Red Bull... Gerhard Berger, who is actually backed by Red Bull. He is a Red Bull athlete, but he passes the Red Bull Tyrrell of Rubens Barrichello. So Nannini ahead of Mansell by 6.7 seconds. And that's looking still pretty good for the McLaren Honda team. They don't have to worry too much about things, as into the pits comes Nannini. He will get the pit stop out of the way nice and early doors. So no wonder he was able to pull out 6 seconds on Mansell. He's definitely had a bit of a tricky run of it so far, but Nannini looking pretty confident as Mansell will come out of the final turn and take the lead. So Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari becomes the new race leader here at the Hungaroring. He will certainly be looking to go for the race victory here in Budapest. Warwick up to second. Häkkinen's going to move up into third position. Nannini will probably rejoin in about 8th or 9th. But it's certainly looking very good still for the Italian, who has made his first pit stop. And there's Schumacher diving up the inside of Herbert. That's taken him quite the while. But Schumacher now makes his bid. And where did Nannini get out? In 6th position. He's managed to beat out the Red Bull Tyrrell as Michele Alboreto goes off the road, trying desperately to close up on Carl Wendlinger in the Jordan, trying to get his move. So Michele Alboreto, two-time winner of a Grand Prix this year in France and Britain, and now finds himself way down in the 20s. So this is definitely not going well for the Italian driver, former vice world champion. But Derek Warwick, 9 seconds back from his countryman Nigel Mansell. This is turning into quite an interesting battle for the Lotus driver. What can he do? He needs to continue this rise up through the ranks. If he can get Lotus to the victory, that would be their 3rd win of the season and their 3rd in 4 races. Into the final hairpin, and no pit stop yet for Derek Warwick, still going strong in front of Häkkinen, Schumacher and Herbert. So Hiro Matsushita in the Honda, still running in 19th position ahead of the Lola. That is the car that started from the back of the grid as they had a qualifying penalty. Stefano Modena trying to work the MasterCard Lola into a relatively competitive position. It's a quick car. The problem around here is that it doesn't matter if you've got a fast car. What you need is a dependable, reliable car, and you need one that can overtake in a tricky situation. But that Honda's got big horsepower. The problem is it can't lay it down in the tight and twisty nature of this particular circuit. They'll probably look quite strong again next time out of Spa in Belgium. But still a very entertaining run so far as we ride on board again with the Honda. And now Nannini has got himself at a 5th position. He's dived up the inside of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari as we look at Emmanuel Collard doing a reasonable job in the Brabham. So Emmanuel Collard, the Frenchman, running out in front of the Jordan of Andy Wallace, the British driver who cantered to the victory so well in pre-qualifying earlier in the weekend. And an excellent display and a great performance so far from the duo racing for 15th position. As there is the other Brabham of Mika Häkkinen, the rookie world champion from last year, as Johnny Herbert in the Porsche Williams is really struggling to stretch away now and is falling into the clutches of the likes of Frentzen, Piquet, De Ferran and Eddie Irvine. I wonder if he's just got a heavy fuel load on board, but certainly Heinz-Harald Frentzen needs to take advantage of this to dive up the inside of the Porsche Williams. He's not close enough. He can't make it happen. So Frentzen's definitely going to be quite tricky. Here's Mika Häkkinen. Nannini in 4th position. Then Schumacher, Herbert, Frentzen, then Piquet, De Ferran and Irvine with Gerhard Berger at the back of that little duo as well in 11th position. And that is because he had an electrical problem. Nannini has been into the pits for his pit stop, and look, Irvine resisting Gerhard Berger. Don't even think about it, mate. You're not getting a decent overtake on me. So Eddie Irvine holding position in front of Gerhard Berger. Is that Warwick slowing? Warwick in the Lotus is slowing from 2nd place. Oh, goodness me. Derek Warwick has had so many results taken away from him for misfortune this year, and it looks like he's going to lose another one. He pulls off in the Lotus. Bitter, bitter disappointment for Derek Warwick as the car comes to a stop at the bottom of the hill. And I'm afraid the British driver, just like Martin Brundle, another stalwart of Grand Prix racing from Great Britain who's not going to get a decent result here today. Johnny Herbert, now up to 5th position as a result of all of that. Hakkinen in 2nd, Nannini back up to 3rd, and only 18 seconds behind Mansell, so it's looking good for McLaren still to take the lead of this race back again when the pit stops are finished. Nannini on a very fast strategy, but if he's stopping twice or even 3 times and Mansell's only stopping once or twice, then that's still a lot of ground that Nannini's going to make up long term. And Mansell's got decent 1-lap race pace. He's 14 seconds clear of Hakkinen. Nannini is going to catch up to Hakkinen pretty quickly, but it's whether the Brabham will give him a hard time when he tries to make the overtake. That's also going to be an interesting factor. So Mansell in the Ferrari leads Hakkinen in the Brabham, and Nannini in the McLaren in front of Schumacher's Ferrari. Then Johnny Herbert in the Williams Porsche. Then it is Frentzen in the Red Bull Tyrrell. Nelson Piquet doing a sizable job in the arrows. And here comes Michele Alboreto up the inside of Hiro Matsushita. So Alboreto gets through on Hiro Matsushita, the Honda driver. No problems there, getting out of the way. So Mika Hakkinen on lap 22. The reigning world champion, rookie champion, first ever in the modern era. A lot of people rating this man incredibly highly. So he's definitely a name to watch for in the future. Mika Hakkinen looks very strong, very fast indeed. And he's very well versed at pushing to the limits in these cars now. Good to get a chance to ride on board there with Mika Hakkinen as Alessandro Nannini close up on him. And look, the gap he's made up is ridiculous at the moment. He was 18 seconds back from Nigel Mansell. He's now only 16 seconds back. So he's absolutely on it today, Alessandro Nannini. The Italian is dropping the hammer and looking very fast. Is he going to make the opportunity? He's not going to wait around to get past Hakkinen. Dives in. Brilliant from Nannini. A lot of people were second-guessing Dave Goddard's decision to bring Alessandro Nannini into the McLaren team. They said, are you sure this isn't really a guy with a killer instinct? But he decided, you know what? There's something about McLaren in this boy. And Alessandro Nannini is absolutely delivering. Doing a great job and really maximising the chance. What if the Italian could go for the title this year? He's got a brilliant opportunity to make it happen. And he certainly knows that he's got a good car underneath him. And he's got good support from the McLaren team. The hierarchy really love him. And he's only a point ahead of Schumacher in the championship, and he's only 7 ahead of Berger and 12 ahead of Senna, but he's definitely got the chance to continue to make headways in this championship. Mind you, Patrese is only on 47 points, Alboreto's on 45, and Mansell is on 42, so there's plenty of opportunity yet for this title battle to shake up in several different directions. So Mansell in the Ferrari is your leader. Nannini has already got well clear of Hakkinen. Look at that. He's got past and just disappeared into the distance. So Nannini is absolutely flying around this course. But then if he's on a 3-stop strategy compared to Mansell on a 2-stop, then that would make plenty of sense, because Nannini's trying to build a bit of a gap so that if he has to make one more pit stop than Mansell, he can get out in front of him. On board with Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, trying to close up on the reigning world champion Mika Hakkinen. But there is Mansell approaching a back marker. I think that's one of the Jordans, as Eddie Cheever is diving up the inside line to move into 20th position. That seemed pretty straightforward. I think he was passing, well, it looked to me like he was passing an Arrows there. But he certainly wasn't, because Piquet's in 7th place and Arie Luyendyk is in 13th, and Johnny Herbert is slowing in the Porsche Williams. Well, he gave it a good chance, but unfortunately this is a car he's not used to, and it looks like he's got a broken suspension at the right rear of the car. So Johnny Herbert is out of the race in the Porsche Williams. So it turns out that the support that Benetton gave to Williams in the shape of a spare driver for this weekend didn't benefit Williams after all. And of the 4 Porsche-powered cars in this Grand Prix, there is only one left. Both Benettons are out. So is Johnny Herbert. So it's now, once again, all down to the young Brazilian talent, Gilles de Ferran. And who is currently down in 12th position, having made the pit stop. Here's Berger trying to hustle Nelson Piquet, who has been very outspoken in the press. There's a lot of bitter gall going on between Nelson Piquet and his Arrows team, because he announced that he's doing a business deal with Emerson Fittipaldi to bring the Fittipaldi team back to Grand Prix racing for 1992. Piquet and Fittipaldi are going to be the team drivers, but apparently Emerson Fittipaldi is only going to be the race driver for 1992. It's going to be his nephew Christian Fittipaldi that takes over the car for 1993. So they're already thinking long term there at the Fittipaldi team. That's all part of the makeup and the ownership of the squad. So any team manager is essentially going to be sharing the gig with Fittipaldi and Piquet for next year. So there is Chiva, currently trying to close up on one of the Hondas. I think that is Hiro Matsushita in front of him. So he's trying to get the opportunity there. He's going very quickly, I have to say, to catch up to the Honda. The Honda just doesn't seem to have the pace that it usually does. Certainly in a straight line, the Honda is the most powerful engine in Grand Prix racing. There's no two ways about that. But on the tight and twisties of the Hungaroring, that Honda is just not dialed up the same way that some of their more all-rounded counterparts have proven to be. So Nigel Mansell's still leading. The gap down to 11.8 seconds, though, between him and Nannini, as Gilles de Ferran gets his way through on the inside of Andy Wallace in the Jordan and very nearly gets past Emmanuel Collard in the Brabham in the same breath. So that was a bit daring from Gilles de Ferran, a talent who a lot of people are highly rating. He's apparently in deep conversations with an IndyCar team for 1992. But now that he's got his opportunity in the Williams team, he clearly wants to stick around and have a go at it, as Gilles de Ferran is all over the back of Emmanuel Collard. This is only Gilles de Ferran's second Grand Prix, and the man in front of him is making his debut, Emmanuel Collard, as Nigel Mansell goes around the outside of Stefano Modena in the Lola, and de Ferran has got past Collard, so he had to work for that, but he has got through. Now, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Red Bull Tyrrell, the German talent in front of his fellow German speaker, Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, in 6th position in the McLaren Honda. Trying to work their way forward through this first hairpin. Is there going to be a chance now for Berger to get back through on Frentzen nice and early, or is he going to have one of those frustrating races where he sits behind him and waits for the opportunity to come? And there is Alessandro Nannini getting his moment to move further forward. Still they battle on. And there is the Italian, who is now just 9.3 seconds back from Mansell. It's looking so good for the Italian in the McLaren. As Mansell, look, is getting held up in traffic. This is not what the British driver needs at all. Chiva is so busy focusing on Hiro Matsushita, he's not getting out of the way of the Ferrari, and Nigel Mansell shakes his fist at the American. As Michele Alboreto in the Lotus comes into the pits in 19th, and Mansell now going to dive up the inside of Hiro Matsushita in the Honda. Chiva wants to stay quite close to Matsushita here. So can he get his move? So Matsushita versus Chiva. Very solid race battle, but there's Nannini. That's how much he's gained on Mansell, and as Nannini laps Carl Wendlinger in the Jordan, it's still Alessandro Nannini pushing very hard here to try and close up even more on Nigel Mansell. Mansell's going to have a massive deficit when it comes to the pit stop. We look at Mika Häkkinen, who is also dropping back massively from Nannini. He's lost 10 seconds to the Italian. So that shows you the kind of speed that they have by comparison to each other, as Schumacher in the Ferrari pits in on lap 26. Now that suggests a 2-stop strategy as opposed to a 3-stop strategy from Nannini. The big question is going to be, what's Nigel Mansell going to do? Because obviously that's also got to be looked into with some careful thought, because Nannini is gaining almost a second a lap on Nigel Mansell's Ferrari. Certainly got a lighter fuel load. But he's going to have a little bit more pressure on him to deliver, as Michael Schumacher loses out to Arie Luyendyk on the exit of the pits there. But let's not forget that Schumacher obviously has just pitted and Luyendyk has not, as in comes Mansell. So Mansell doesn't want to cause himself too many more problems than he has to, as the Jordan of Carl Wendlinger goes through. And Nannini, of course, has already got past Carl Wendlinger some time ago. So Alessandro Nannini retakes the lead of the Grand Prix in front of Mika Häkkinen, who is 11 seconds back now. Mansell's going to rejoin, I think, in front of Berger. Certainly should do, as Michael Schumacher tiptoes his way through the curbs at the chicane on the far side of the circuit. And I can tell you that Mansell has indeed got out of the pits in third place, as Frentzen, Barrichello, I should say, has come into the pits, and so too has the three-time world champion Nelson Piquet in the Arrows. So Nelson Piquet has come out of the pits, will come out of the pits this time. Gilles de Ferran passing the other Arrows. That is Arie Luyendyk. And a dive through at the inside. Beautifully handled. Very nice. Very nicely worked. So Andy Wallace comes into the pits now in the Jordan. And there is your new race leader again. Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren, looking good to repeat the feat from Germany. And certainly a solid season he is having. Had a blip in the middle of the season where he couldn't get any better than a 7th place from Brazil to Mexico. But other than that, he's had 2 seconds, a third, and a win at the German Grand Prix. And he leads the championship by 1 point to Michael Schumacher. Of course, Nigel Mansell scored the bonus point for setting the pole position, and that means that he'll get 43 points in the championship now, just 2 behind Alboreto and 4 behind Riccardo Patrese. And incredibly, he's only 8 behind Ayrton Senna. So the title battle is definitely still going to be tight, no matter which way you look at it. Alessandro Nannini tripping his way through. You've got to be careful. You do not want to get yourself caught up in the traffic. Mansell is 17.4 seconds back. But obviously Nannini trying to push and get well clear of the British driver in the Ferrari, as Frentzen and Irvine become the latest 2 drivers to visit the pits. But they should get out ahead of Piquet, as Nannini struggling here with the Honda. And Hiro Matsushita really struggling to comply with the wishes of the race leader here, as Mika Hakkinen has got the Lotus directly behind him. That's Alboreto, as Nannini dives in on Matsushita, and he shakes his fist at the Honda driver. But that has given Shiva a great opportunity, and Shiva knows it. So Shiva is going to try his best to get up the inside of Matsushita. But we didn't see the outcome. No, we did, because it's come up on the timing graphic there. Shiva has got through past Hiro Matsushita, and now Michele Alboreto is going to try and unlap himself from the Brabham of Mika Hakkinen in 2nd place. So Alboreto's clearly got a fast car underneath him. He's just way too far back to do anything about it. Either that, or Mika Hakkinen in the Brabham has got a problem developing. So Hakkinen still doing his best to move forward, as Naoki Hattori is going ultra fast to try and get away from the Lotus behind him. But Alboreto is obviously going to be on the charge, and Mika Hakkinen trying to get through as well, as Arie Luyendyk goes wheel to wheel with Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Stefano Modena trying to keep the Lola on the road. His teammate Mauricio Gugelmin is 3 places in front of him, by the way, in 14th position, the Brazilian driver. Alessandro Nannini still having a very solid race of this, 11.2 seconds ahead of Hakkinen, and Mansell is only 12.6 seconds back. So that's how much time Nannini has actually lost in the traffic. He's lost a good 5 seconds of pace. So this is critical for Nannini to not get held up in the traffic anymore, as Naoki Hattori is making the bid on the inside of the Jordan of Carl Wendlinger. It's going to move him up another place. And diving through, that's Alboreto again, I believe, in the Lotus, and lapping himself from a Ferrari. And I think that was Nigel Mansell, with the gap having come down to 14.1 seconds. And it was as high as 18, then it went down to 11, and now it's 14 again. So Mansell is having the same problems that Nannini was having, as Alboreto has to get out of the way and let Mika Hakkinen through. He'll have to do the same thing for Mansell. This is where Mansell can be really tactical and make his bid on Hakkinen in the Brabham. So Hakkinen's going to dive up the inside of the Jordan. He gets through, as Luyendyk has got his pressure from Eddie Irvine up to the first corner. And Eddie Irvine should get 9th. He does. He passes the Flying Dutchman. So Arie Luyendyk has to be content with 10th position for the moment. But still a really solid effort from Arie Luyendyk. Finally getting his opportunity to get behind the wheel of a Grand Prix car and showcasing his talent and his skill. He hasn't quite been able to convert that into solid results yet, young Arie Luyendyk, but there is still time and still opportunity, as he knows it well. So Wendlinger getting out of the way of the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell, but also wants to get out of the way of the Lotus of Alboreto. As into the pits comes Hakkinen. So Häkkinen goes long on his strategy. That could be quite critical as the race battle continues. So everybody is still going to be looking for a solid race. But there is Alessandro Nannini, the Italian, leading the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1991 on lap 32 out of 77 as Andy Wallace tries to get his move up the inside of the Lola. He can't quite get past that particular car at the moment. There's Riccardo Patrese into the pit lane in the Ligier, so that promotes Leondijk and Barrichello into the points. There's still a lot of race to come in this one. We're not quite at the half distance mark yet. So Gerhard Berger pushing hard, still looking for the ultimate victory to come his way in the McLaren. It's a tough old race, this. Rubens Barrichello trying to make his bid up the inside of Arie Luyendyk. This is Arrows versus Tyrrell, two of the stalwarts of the last decade of racing. A fabulous situation for the contenders, and they are still going to give us plenty to do as Rubens Barrichello works his magic there. A very solid race battle, but Berger having a problem there on the main straight by the look of it. So working his way down to the first corner. And Berger now back into third position. 22 seconds off his teammate Nannini. All that time that he lost, of course, in the electrical problem, but he's certainly getting further up the field. He's certainly trying to make his advantages count wherever possible. So it's going to be quite a tough challenge for all of the drivers as they continue to move forward. Nannini trying not to trip over the Ligier, which gets out of the way nicely. That is Riccardo Patrese having had a problem of some kind by the look of it. So Patrese was right up there in the mix. Now definitely having some kind of difficulty. That's not going to help their composure at all, is it? So a tricky one then for the crew. And they're just going to have to accept the fact that Nannini made that look very easy. Mika Häkkinen! Is he slowing? He is indeed. Mika Häkkinen, a potential second place in this one, goes and disappears. Well, that's very disappointing for the reigning champion. So a big, big problem then for Mika Häkkinen retiring from this race, and that gives Mansell a perfect run in second. Berger in third. Schumacher is now fourth in front of the Brazilian Gil de Ferran, who is really starting to challenge Rubens Barrichello's authority as the top rookie. So, a very difficult race battle comes to an end for Mika Häkkinen, and that's very unfortunate. But still, they battle on. Nannini in front of Mansell, Berger, Schumacher, de Ferran, Frentzen, and then the four final point scorers are currently Irvine, Barrichello, Leondijk, and Nelson Piquet. So the competitors are all giving us a really excellent show at the moment. There's Michele Alboreto in the Lotus, working hard in 16th position, trying to work himself back into a position. He hasn't really been able to do that so far, though, has he? He's not exactly made the progress he wanted to, as Emmanuel Collard comes into the pits in the Brabham. So down the hill and through to the hairpin. Michele Alboreto pushing on. And there's Mansell going around the outside of one of the Hondas. I think that's Naoki Hattori. Oh, it might be Hiro Matsushita, actually. So he gets past Hiro Matsushita as Wallace is about to lose ground here to Alboreto, who will finally get onto the first page of the timing screen for the first time since the first lap of the race. So Alboreto trying to bounce back into the points and do the best he can. But this is not going to be particularly straightforward. It's not going to be very easy. So let's see how it continues. But Mansell, 16 seconds back from Alessandro Nannini as we get ever closer to the first half of this race being completed. So there is Stefano Modena in the Lola, and he is currently in front of Alboreto's Lotus. Meanwhile, Berger is trying to close up on Nigel Mansell, and in comes Irvine and Luyendyk from their points-paying positions. That's going to promote Patrese to 9th, and I think Hiro Matsushita is going to come up to 10th position, a point for Honda, which they badly need, let's be fair. So Frentzen, 6th position, behind Gil de Ferran. Still a very tricky battling situation for the contenders. So Ferran, 5th position. Schumacher in P4, and then Frentzen in P6 from Barrichello, Piquet, Patrese, and Eddie Irvine. Alessandro Nannini, the Italian, completes that 35, so we're now into that 36. We are getting close to the halfway point in this one, as there goes the Lotus of Alboreto, passing Stefano Modena for 14th. Not a lot that Modena could do about that one. Alboreto, with the vastly superior power in his car, able to just stretch away. So there is Mansell in the Ferrari. Second position, 15.8 back from Nannini. This is going to be tough to call between these two. Both drivers have a real sense of grandeur about this occasion. Mansell pushing hard to try and get 15 points on the championship table for the victory. In the previous system in 1989, it was of course 9 points I should say, for the victory. But now it is 15. So of course the top 10 drivers now score points for the championship, not the top 6. There is Alessandro Nannini, his magic in the lead, 15.5 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell, with Gerhard Berger in third from Schumacher, De Ferran, Frentzen, and then Barrichello in the Red Bull Tyrrell, Nelson Piquet in the Arrows, ahead of the two Ligiers of Riccardo Patrese and Eddie Irvine. Still a long way to go, still a lot to do. Working their magic up the hill. Here's Alboreto. Now he's going to try and take on Hiro Matsushita in the Honda, and he dives through, no problems at all there. He makes that one look fairly straightforward, to be honest. So up into 13th place then comes Michele Alboreto, the sole remaining Lotus, just trying to get back into a competitive position, having had a major hiccup. And Irvine dives in on his teammate Riccardo Patrese, and Nelson Piquet having a bit of a wild ride there. So it's still very active out there on the course, that is for sure. So very exciting battles galore around the circuit. And Nelson Piquet certainly having a really interesting race of it as he continues his magnanimous approach to the battles here. But still, some good racing. So there is Naoki Hattori in the Honda, as Alessandro Nannini comes into the pits from the race lead. He was 14.8 ahead of Mansell. This is going to be tricky now. Who's got it right? Is it going to be the third pit stopper or the second pit stopper? Hard to know whether 3 stops or 2 stops is actually the correct strategy. It all comes down to traffic at the end of the day. But we are approaching the latter stages of the first half of racing, and there is the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell, now back in the lead again, 9.3 ahead of Nannini, who's going to have the pace advantage on fresher tyres. And there goes Gujamin diving through on the inside of Naoki Hattori in the Honda. Hiro Matsushita has come into the pits, and Eddie Irvine pushing very hard, having now got past his teammate Patrese. Patrese's dropped a long way back. So Irvine has not just got past his Italian teammate, he's absolutely dropped him. So Irvine in 9th position, trying to catch up to the 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet. So still they battle their way around the course here. So Mansell, Nannini, Berger, Schumacher and De Ferran. So the car makes its way through the top of the hill, and Alessandro Nannini is 12.7 seconds back from Nigel Mansell and still wants to play for the victory. There is Berger, who's now only 4 seconds back from Nannini, incidentally. So Berger is not out of the contention for the victory by any means at all. Here is the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell. So continuing the battle and having a good run. There's Alboreto now getting past Emmanuel Collard in the Brabham. So that was the car that was Alain Prost's. Emmanuel Collard now in 13th position behind the Italian of Michele Alboreto, whose next target is going to be Arie Luyendyk in the Arrows before Alboreto can storm his way back to the victory. Very long race this is going to be for Alboreto, because of course he's a 2-time winner this year at Magny-Cours and at Silverstone. Schumacher now passing Naoki Hattori and gets through past the Honda. So Naoki Hattori having a very interesting run of it as he continues on his methodology through the course. And there is Gerhard Berger running in front of the Jordan. Now that is Andy Wallace, I think, that he's just lapped. But Nannini's slowing! Nannini is slowing! Alessandro Nannini in the McLaren is slowing and pulling off. There goes the chance of the victory for Alessandro Nannini. What a fabulous race it has been for him, but it all comes to nothing. Mechanical failure drops Alessandro Nannini out of the Hungarian Grand Prix. He does not get the back-to-back victories that Michele Alboreto enjoyed earlier this season. So, bitter disappointment for Alessandro Nannini. Well, that is a big shock for Nannini. Certainly didn't think that was going to give him a helping hand, but it's all gone wrong indeed for Nannini now. So it's McLaren that is on the back foot, because Gerhard Berger is the sole remaining McLaren, and they've had a mechanical problem take out Nannini, and now they already had an electrical problem earlier in the race that held up Gerhard Berger. So they've got to be careful from now on. There's Michael Schumacher. Third position in the second of the two Ferraris. Up to fourth comes Gilles de Ferran. You know, by just not pushing, Gilles de Ferran is scoring decent points, and he actually has the chance here to beat Rubens Barrichello to the Rookie of the Year trophy. Because Barrichello is in sixth position. There is Gilles de Ferran in the Williams. He's obviously under the tutelage of Ayrton Senna, so you can't exactly learn from much better than that, can you? So Gilles de Ferran, I wonder if there might be a little bit of impetus from Senna to keep him alongside him for the rest of 1991. I know for a fact that he and Thierry Boutsen weren't altogether chatty mates. And that's Hiro Matsushita in the Honda. So he has retired from the race as well now. So Hiro Matsushita, he is also out of the Hungarian Grand Prix. And that is obviously one less chance for the Hondas to score a championship point. The top 10 cars in the Grand Prix score championship points. We're now into the second half of this race. And cars are definitely starting to drop out of the battle now, but Nigel Mansell still plugging away in the Ferrari, and now he's got 20 seconds on Gerhard Berger. The removal of Alessandro Nannini from the battle definitely gives Nigel Mansell a little bit of breathing room now in the Ferrari to just continue this epic pace. But this is the kind of circuit that really can suit the Ferrari, of course, because he doesn't find himself pushing too insanely hard in terms of raw power. He can just get that car through the turns rather smoothly. So Mansell is the leader, then Berger, then Schumacher, then de Ferran, and then the two Tyrrells of Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Rubens Barrichello. Then Piquet 7th, 8th is Irvine, and that's Eddie Cheever. Eddie Cheever with, oh no, it's Barrichello pulling off. Cheever was passing him, but Barrichello's got flames coming out of the back of the Red Bull Tyrrell. So more disaster for Honda today. The works car has gone, and now one of the Red Bull Tyrrells has as well. So Rubens Barrichello out of the race now, and that's going to promote Piquet up to 6th, Irvine to 7th, Patrese to 8th. Luyendyk in the Arrows is looking good for 9th at the moment, and back into the points comes the Lotus of Michele Alboreto. So there is the sole surviving McLaren of Gerhard Berger, the Austrian driver, trying to shake off the attentions of the incoming Michael Schumacher, who is definitely gaining ground in the Ferrari now. But Berger, of course, is in the hunt for the title race. And Alessandro Nannini, who had just taken the lead of the Drivers' Championship compared to Michael Schumacher, who we're on board with now, is now not going to be leading the championship anymore if Schumacher remains in the top 3. So Wallace has just let Berger go. Now he's got to do very similar fairly quickly for Michael Schumacher. But it's not fast enough as far as the German is concerned. And Andy Wallace, who is in his first ever Grand Prix weekend and his first ever Grand Prix start for the Jordan team, needs to get out of the way a mighty bit quicker than that, but he has now done so. He's only 2 points off a point, and the Jordan team have yet to score a championship point in 1991 in the Grand Prix. They've had some very strong performances in pre-qualifying, but the Jordan team are one of several teams that have not yet scored a championship point. Only 13 teams have, by the way, and of the pre-qualifiers, it's only Ford Eurobrun, Modena Lamborghini and the Coloni teams that have managed to score championship points, as we watch Irvine getting it slightly crossed up in the chicane as he gets past Nelson Piquet up at the 6th position. So Irvine now in front of the 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet. But the team that is the closest to have scored a championship point in terms of results so far is the team from Honda, who have 2 11th place finishes in their bank. Dallara has a 12th and a 14th. And the Jordan team have a sole 14th place finish. This is only the 4th time that the Jordan team have qualified this season, actually. But of course, for next year, they're teaming up with the American chassis builder Penske, and they will have factory Chevrolet engines for next year. This is a great tie-in between the Irish and American race teams. It'll be known as Jordan Penske Racing. As Michael Schumacher runs in behind Gerhard Berger, he really has caught up the Austrian. And with the McLaren looking vulnerable after Nannini's retirement earlier on in the race and Berger having that electrical issue, they've got to be so careful how hard they actually fight Schumacher for second place. But the German looks motivated. Looks like he wants to go for it. Don't forget, he won the first 2 Grand Prix of the season, Michael Schumacher, in that Ferrari. Surprised a lot of people coming fresh out of the blocks and put himself right into the championship hunt from the start. And a lot of people talking up the chances of this very talented young German. But there is Nigel Mansell in the second Ferrari, currently 7th in the Drivers' Championship on 42 points. That is only 21 points back from championship leader Alessandro Nannini. So all it takes is a win, and Mansell is suddenly a championship contender again. Here's Berger. Right in behind is Michael Schumacher, who has caught him right up. The Ferrari all over the back of the McLaren. So we are definitely getting into the business end of this Grand Prix, and now it's all going to be about Gerhard Berger defending his position and keeping it nice and tidy in front of the German talent Michael Schumacher. Meanwhile, Frentzen in the Red Bull Tyrrell is looking to be best of the rest here. He's caught up to Gilles de Ferran in the Williams as Eddie Irvine laps Carl Wendlinger. Not a bad run from the Ligier in P6. So Eddie Irvine can be very happy with this in front of his teammate Patrese, who is struggling to get back on terms with Nelson Piquet in 7th. Ari Leyendijk in the Arrows in a very solid 9th. And then Michele Alboreto in the remaining Ligier, who has 45 points over the course of his season, 30 of which were 2 victories. And Schumacher now has a chance here on Berger. They're going to get past the Brabham of Collard. Is he going to commit to the first corner? No, he had to bail out of that one. So Schumacher's still hungry to get into second place past Berger. Here's going to be his best chance. He'll dive in for the inside. Will he? No, he's not going to make the move into turn 2 unless he knows he's going to have it. So Nigel Mansell, 25.8 seconds clear of Berger. He's almost at the point where he can come into the pits and get out again without the other 2 having to pit. But of course the other 2 do still have to pit at least one more time. But Mansell has the upper hand, 26 seconds clear of Berger and Schumacher. And the Ferrari driver looking very strong indeed here, just continuing his amazing battle around this course. Lap 45 out of 77. We're beyond half distance now as we ride with Gerhard Berger, still desperately trying to keep Michael Schumacher's Ferrari behind him. Gilles de Ferran in the Williams in 4th, then Frentzen, Irvine, Piquet, Patrese, Leyendijk and Alboreto. And I can tell you, if Gilles de Ferran comes up with another top 4 finish, the Brazilian driver, on 8 points, he's actually going to match Rubens Barrichello's score for top rookie of the season. And here he goes up the inside of Matsushita to fend off, to get past Naoki Hattori, I should say, to fend off from the hard-charging Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Gilles de Ferran is suddenly looking like a contender to Barrichello's Rookie of the Year award, as there is Frentzen round the far side, trying to keep it going. And a very tricky scenario for the contenders. Meanwhile, Mansell ahead of Schumacher and Berger. Schumacher's got through past Berger, so we didn't see where Schumacher made the move on the Austrian, but Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari has got through into second place, and it's a Ferrari 1-2 at a critical point in not just the race, but also the season. So Ferrari can be very happy indeed with this. Mansell leading, Schumacher second. Half a minute nearly between the 2 drivers. They've both got to make one more stop. But it's looking pretty safe and sound for Nigel Mansell to win the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1991. Mind you, we said that in the early stages about Alessandro Nannini. Nothing is ever certain. Just keep pushing. Just keep the car going. Look after it. And hopefully it'll all come rosy for them. So Mansell, Schumacher, Berger, Ferran and Frentzen. That's your top 5 at the moment. Heinz-Harald Frentzen all over the back of the Brazilian Gilles de Ferran in the Porsche Williams. There is Gilles de Ferran. Look back. We've got a strong opposition now from the Red Bull Tyrrell. Desperately working to make it look as Porsche as possible, the new Williams car. Trying to be very subtle all the way through. He's got a bit of pressure from the first corner from the Tyrrell. Frenson still all over the back of the Brazilian. But there's your race leader, Nigel Mansell, in the Ferrari on lap 47 out of 77. So time is definitely ticking on. And the Ferrari is looking very composed and very comfortable at this stage of the Hungarian Grand Prix. But again, everybody knows that you cannot count these races as won until you cross the finish line. We've had races even this year be decided in the final lap. So a really exciting situation. But let's see how it all continues. As into the pits comes Michael Schumacher, having got into second position in the Ferrari. And now he will obviously continue the challenge to race Gerhard Berger for P2. But Schumacher going for a 2-stop strategy. Berger's obviously on a 3-stop strategy and well committed to that now. Into the pits. Then comes Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. Looking good in third position. He will drop back, I reckon, to fifth behind de Ferran and Frenson. But Nigel Mansell still leads the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1991. And Frenson, by the way, has got past de Ferran. So Frenson has managed to get the move on Gilles de Ferran. So that is good news for the Red Bull Tyrrell team. And their team principal, Sam Hall, has had a really exciting battle. Now, there is some very interesting conjecture going on about the Red Bull Tyrrell team for next season. Apparently, they're actually really liking the chemistry of Heinz-Harald Frenson and Rubens Barrichello in these last couple of races, and it could well be that Red Bull Tyrrell elects to go with these two, which would obviously leave their French driver, Jean Alesi, with nowhere to go. Now, Gilles de Ferran is having some problems here. He has dropped off the pace quite dramatically compared to Frenson. So de Ferran now finds himself a good 17 seconds back from Frenson. I think he's had an off somewhere, you know, because that's not a pit stop. The pit stop would have taken longer than that. Now it looks a bit more likely because de Ferran is now showing as a minute 18 back rather than... Yeah, so I think maybe actually de Ferran did make a pit stop. I didn't see it, but I do think that de Ferran may have made that pit stop. So Andy Wallace in the Jordan comes in from 11th position. This would be a good opportunity for the Jordan team to bag their first championship point of the season. That's the thing, attrition being high at somewhere as hot as the Hungaroring, you never really know until the checkered flag is going to fall. As long as you make it into the top 10, you'll score championship points for both yourself and your team. So Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, now in second place, but he's got big pressure from Michael Schumacher in his Ferrari, and he knows it. So Schumacher has completed his second pit stop, which I think is going to be his last pit stop. Mansell and Berger, well, they've gone slightly further into the race, haven't they? So Frenson is lining up a run at third position in the Red Bull Tyrrell. As down the inside of Carl Wendlinger, that was one of the Porsche Williams cars, and seeing as how there's only one on track, that's got to be Gilles de Ferran in fifth position. He's gained a second on the race leader Nigel Mansell there in the last lap, Gilles de Ferran. It's not just the car going quickly, you've got to drive it well to get it to the front end, as Berger now comes into the pits. So there's Michael Schumacher in the background, who is obviously now behind Heinz-Harald Frenson in the Tyrrell. And there is Arie Luyendyk in the Arrows. He's just lost ground to Riccardo Patrese. So the Flying Dutchman, as they call him, having a very solid race of it. Where's Berger going to get out in relation to Frenson and Schumacher? Well, Berger is going to get out behind the German. In fact, he's got behind both Germans, so Berger does not beat Schumacher out of the pits. Right on board with the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Just 21 points back in the Drivers' Championship. A win is worth 15. And he's already got the point for pole position. So he's going to try and get himself to within 5 points of the tally put up by Alessandro Nannini, heading to the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa next time out. There's Michael Schumacher. If he stays in third, he will reclaim the lead of the Drivers' Championship as Mauricio Gugelmin gets out of the way of a Tyrrell. I think that's Frenson managing to get by without causing too many headaches. So certainly a very tricky race of it, that's for sure. But it's not done. There's still plenty more to do and plenty more to shout about, as the drivers clearly know. They're going to have a really interesting race of it from here on out. They've really got to push on. Mansell's got himself into a solid position. He knows that as well. And Schumacher has got the fresher tired McLaren all over the back of him. So Berger on fresher tyres. But Schumacher is going to be there to hold his position in third. And there goes Mansell back up the inside of the Jordan. And that is to put a lap on it. Look at how well Mansell is going. 6th position has been lapped. So only the top 5 are still on the same lap. There is Cheever in the Ford, going wheel to wheel with the Lola. That's got to be Stefano Modena, who now gets through on the inside line. So still plenty of opportunities for teams to come up with a decent, strong result at the end of this one as we go into lap 52. Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari is nearly a minute clear of Frentzen and Schumacher and Berger. 3 drivers battling over second place in the Hungarian Grand Prix. And of course, from all 3 drivers' point of view, all it takes is for Mansell to have a mechanical problem and suddenly they're battling for the victory. So you never know. This could be fascinating. And still we rage and battle on. And still a really exciting run for all of the contenders. It'll be a very tricky battle for everybody. But I tell you what, the battle for second place is definitely heating up. We've got Frentzen, we've got Schumacher, we've got Berger, and Schumacher diving up the inside of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He gets into second place in the Ferrari. Not a lot that Frentzen could do to resist him. But now Frentzen has a chance to redeem himself in the battle between him and Gerhard Berger. Mansell cannot be too far away from making his final pit stop. And he's got plenty of time to do it as well. He's got 52 seconds on Schumacher, his teammate, as Berger is really struggling behind Frentzen. But a great race battle. No wonder the Red Bull Tyrrell team are considering keeping Frentzen on board next year alongside the hot ticket Rubens Barrichello. They'll be one of the strongest young driver lineups in the sport as Eddie Irvine is going to go wheel to wheel with a 3-time world champion. And Eddie Irvine dives in on Nelson Piquet. You know what? His stock really has been rising in the ascendance over the course of this season. The Ligier team really seem to have found somebody quite special in Eddie Irvine. Gilles de Ferran, who is in 5th position, trying not to trip over back markers here. So a very tricky situation for them all at the moment. But they're still working hard. There is Michael Schumacher. Still having a great race of it. And there goes Michele Alboreto. He gets the Lotus back into the point again. I say back into the point because obviously he's only going to be getting 10th position if it stays like this. And that's only worth 1 championship point. Right, now that Schumacher has got past Frentzen, he's been released. He's going very quickly. He's just taken a second out of Mansell's lead. But obviously Mansell's still got to make a pit stop, and that gap is 51.9 seconds. But Schumacher wants to take the lead and the championship lead as well. Mansell goes past the pits again. And this time he gets another lap on Cheever in the Ford Eurobrunn. So that is the second time he's lapped the American. But Mansell leads Schumacher. Then it is Berger in front of Frentzen. So Berger has got past the Tyrrell as well now. Gerhard Berger through into 3rd position at the expense of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So a very tricky race situation. So a really exciting battle. And Berger going off the road. So Berger has dropped it at the chicane. So Gerhard Berger overshooting, and Frentzen is going to get another shot at him for 3rd position. So, fascinating. But we are going to be very closely knit here as Schumacher, again, continues to hold on in front of Berger and Frentzen, but Berger falling into the clutches of the German talent, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, after dropping it into the chicane. Gilles de Ferran in the Williams, now stuck in 5th position, not quite in the position he was hoping to be in. And there is the Honda of Naoki Hattori getting out of the way. And Andy Wallace is going to have him on the straight, is he? Andy Wallace, this is quite significant. This is Honda versus Jordan. The Jordan car is accepted to be one of the best of the new talented teams coming in, as Nigel Mansell makes his final pit stop from the lead at the end of lap 54. So that's pretty good timing for Nigel Mansell. He didn't want to push much further than that, to be honest. But certainly for the Jordan team and Andy Wallace trying to take on Naoki Hattori in the Honda, they would love to get a championship point out of this Grand Prix. They have a shot at it. So Mansell gets out onto the circuit again with his lead still intact over his teammate Michael Schumacher. There is Mansell through turn 1. So he's got this race in the bag in terms of raw pace. He did such a great job to win this Grand Prix back in 1989, of course, when he fought wheel to wheel with Ayrton Senna. So a terrific battle. But Nigel Mansell really wants to finish off strong. And into the pits comes Frentzen. This is for his final pit stop, so he's going to go back into the clutches of Gilles de Ferran, who of course is the man he's actually racing with in the battle for 4th position. But Gilles de Ferran is on the verge of being lapped here by Nigel Mansell. He's got about 17 seconds or so to catch him before he can put a lap on him, but he's certainly going after it. That accolade is not a bad one to chase after. There's Nigel Mansell, now in front of Arie Luyendyk in the Arrows. This is going to be very satisfying if Mansell keeps this up, because he's going to go a lap ahead of the 3-time world champion and his former teammate and rival, Nelson Piquet. So still they battle on. Mansell is now 24 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. There is the McLaren of Gerhard Berger, who dives through past Emmanuel Collard. No problem at all to lap the Brabham on his Grand Prix debut. So Collard having a tricky race of it, but good to see him working his magic. Schumacher, 2nd position, trying to stretch away from Berger. And then de Ferran in 4th place ahead of Frentzen and Irvine. And then it is Piquet ahead of Arie Luyendyk, Riccardo Patrese and Michele Alboreto looking good for the final point at the moment in the Lotus. So still good racing going on here, still some good battles. But with 22 laps to go, Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari looking good. There he is in the number 14 Ferrari. So Nigel Mansell on the other side of the circuit to Schumacher and Berger, just keeping it together. Neat and tidy. That's all we need for Ferrari to get a 1-2 here. That would be massive at this stage of the championship, especially with the Constructors' Championship also up for grabs. There goes Modena, diving up the inside of Naoki Hattori in the Honda. So Stefano Modena now joining his teammate Mauricio Gugelmin into the mix. Gugelmin 12th, Modena 14th. Still trying to get as many points together as they can to give Loda a little bit of sustenance as they pull out of the course. They'll still get their prize money for being involved in 1991, so the Loda Cars company will be very happy to continue their growth as a result of that. But out of the final turn, and Gerhard Berger trying to stay with Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. The Mansell leads, Schumacher 2nd, Berger in the McLaren is 3rd. So this duel is going to continue. As far as Nigel Mansell is concerned, he has got a win staring him in the pocket, staring him in the face. He knows how to get this done, and he's about to lap it 3 times world champion and former rival Nelson Piquet. Well, Nigel, be careful. You've got a rivalry with Nelson Piquet that dates back quite a few years now. Remember the false move into the Stowe corner at Silverstone 87. Just as I was saying that, Piquet makes it very easy. It's almost as if he's resigned to finishing down at the back in Grand Prix races now. You know for a fact that he's had a bit of a falling out with his team manager at the Arrows squad. And apparently there are rumours going around that the Belgian Grand Prix will be his last in Formula 1 for the Arrows team. But of course he has signed up with Emerson Fittipaldi's Fittipaldi team for 1992. They have entered for next year. It looks all fine and dandy, so we'll see if they're going to continue to make the progress. If not, there are going to be a few other teams waiting in the wings, having built cars to try and work their way further forward. But there is Berger having caught up to Schumacher. Come on, he's got an opportunity in the slipstream, and Berger's going to dive up the inside, and Gerhard Berger gets into 2nd position past Michael Schumacher. That's critical in terms of the championship fight, of course, because Berger is now on 12 points. Schumacher is now back down to 10. And in terms of the title fight, let's not forget the fact that Gerhard Berger currently has 56 points in the championship. Michael Schumacher has 62, so that gets the gap between them down from 6 points to what is potentially going to be 4 points. As Frentzen now dives up the inside of de Ferran and gets into 4th position. A good run from the German in the Tyrrell. So Frentzen gets ahead of the Brazilian charge, Gilles de Ferran, who is chipping away at Rubens Barrichello's Rookie of the Year status. With each race he gets into the Williams Porsche. So Mansell, Berger, Schumacher, Frentzen, and De Ferran. That's the top 5. Then it is Eddie Irvine in front of Nelson Piquet, who's doing everything he can not to be lapped by Mansell, as Frentzen now dives up the inside. And Mansell's back in the pits again. Something's happened to Mansell. Mansell comes in again. Now, that, to my maths, is his 4th pit stop. He only came in a few laps ago, Nigel Mansell. So Berger is going to take the lead now. Schumacher into 2nd, Mansell back down to 3rd. So something has happened to Mansell, clearly some kind of mechanical difficulty. But Mansell is down to 3rd position behind Berger and Schumacher. And Gilles de Ferran has caught back up, or is trying to catch back up to Frentzen in the battle for 4th place. But there's the new leader, Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, in front of Schumacher, and in the background, you might just make out Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari. It is all change at the Hungarian Grand Prix with just 19 laps to go. McLaren retake the lead. We had Nannini lead the race, he retired. Mansell led the race, then he's had a mechanical issue of some kind, and Gerhard Berger is now the race leader of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Here's Mansell, furiously getting back up to speed, but he's down to 3rd. So Nigel Mansell now having to fight to get himself back onto the top step of the podium again. Backs to the wall, and this is great news for Berger because he's going to cut his deficit to Michael Schumacher in half from 6 points down to 3. Well, an interesting situation then. Wow, very exciting stuff. So Schumacher running close quarters racing at the moment as he continues to work the team down the straight. But this is tough stuff for Schumacher. He knew he could have been leading this Grand Prix, so he's going to have to charge back up to Berger once again. 18 to go. Mansell is only 5 seconds back, though. He's gained a second on this lap already. Mansell is really pushing to steal back the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. He does not want to lose this. There he is in the background. Mansell, determined. Il Leone, trying to fight his way back into contention. This is the kind of Grand Prix we were hoping for. And look, Mansell's down to 4.5 seconds back. He's absolutely adamant. I am not losing the Hungarian Grand Prix. But how on earth does he hope to pass, firstly, his teammate Schumacher, who is ahead of him in the championship, and Gerhard Berger, 2 of the hardest men to overtake in Grand Prix racing. So Nigel Mansell has really got to dig deep and find something special here. There is Berger. Schumacher in 2nd, Mansell in 3rd. He's eating away at the gap big time. 3.7 seconds is now the gap as Collard slows. Emmanuel Collard slows in the Brabham. There goes the chance of a point on his debut. So Emmanuel Collard retires the Brabham the way that Mika Häkkinen's car retired earlier on. So I'm afraid Emmanuel Collard is the next retirement. Look at Mansell, 1:17.9. He sets the new fastest lap in his bid to catch up to the guys in front. Mansell is furious. Berger, Schumacher, Mansell, 2.4 seconds between them. And Berger is your leader. Mansell all over the back of his teammate Michael Schumacher. Can he work his way forward? Mansell is already attacking his teammate. Can he come up into 2nd position? He's right behind him. And with 17 laps to go, Ferrari have to think about this calculatedly. They're losing time to Berger. Mansell's clearly got a fast car underneath him. What do the Ferrari team do? Do they get Schumacher out of the way and let Mansell go? Or do they let them race for it? Mansell is all over his teammate Michael Schumacher here, but they are dropping time big time to Gerhard Berger in the McLaren. Schumacher will want to go for the win for sure, but so too will Mansell, and it's clear from the last 3 or 4 laps that Mansell is the one with the speed to do it. Out of the final turn, Berger's got traffic in front. You've got to make advantage of this now as he gets past Alboreto, who is up to 10th position, and Mansell is on the charge after Schumacher. He's got through into turn 1. We're on board with Alboreto looking at the McLaren, but Mansell is through into turn 1, into 2nd position. So the Ferrari team have clearly been tactical, as Patrese is lapped by Gerhard Berger in the lead of the race. And there is Schumacher in 3rd. He's had to let Mansell go. So Mansell into 2nd position. 2.2 seconds is the gap. And look, Schumacher's hemorrhaging time already. He loses nearly a second to Mansell, who is just absolutely storming. Charges up the inside of Alboreto in the Lotus. Pardon me, I'm coming through, and Schumacher almost goes into the back of Alboreto's rear wing. You are watching the master of angry driving. Nigel Mansell, Il Leone, determined to get himself back into a race-winning position. He's had 2 second places at Monaco and Canada, but he has yet to win in 1991. And Mansell would dearly love to join the winners list, following in the footsteps of Michael Schumacher, Thierry Boutsen, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Michele Alboreto and Alessandro Nannini. 6 different winners from the first 9 races of the season. Michael Schumacher dropping back now in the Ferrari, but Nigel Mansell wants to become winner number 7 in the first 10 races of the year. That's how competitive it is in Grand Prix racing, but Berger wants to become winner number 7. He gets out of the way, does Arie Luyendyk, moves over. No problems at all for the Flying Dutchman to do that, but Mansell is 2.4 seconds back with 15 laps to go. Can he catch Gerhard Berger as Schumacher drops back big time? So Schumacher's just burnt out the tyres on a 2-stop strategy. It's clear that the 3-stop strategy was the way to go. So Schumacher's now just got to try and hold on from Frentzen in 4th place. But Frentzen is chipping away at Schumacher's advantage as well. He's got 15 laps and he's got 20 seconds or so. That should be fine. But you can't afford to get held up in traffic here, Michael. As Mansell blasts out from behind Arie Luyendyk. And Alboreto's actually going wheel to wheel with Schumacher. Schumacher shakes his fist at Alboreto. What are you doing? I'm lapping you. Move over. And of course, Alboreto in 10th position is just 2 places in front of Andy Wallace, who is trying to give Jordan their first championship point. So there's plenty still at stake in this Grand Prix. Plenty still to do. And they continue to challenge each other. Berger is now 1.9 ahead of Mansell. Mansell is reeling in. The Austrian in the lead of this Grand Prix. There is Berger up in front. We're on board with Nigel Mansell. We haven't given up. We're still pushing hard. Schumacher's dropping back now. He's now down to 7.6 seconds back. Just the 2-stop strategy, the wrong choice. And as a result, he is falling down ever further into the clutches of Heinz-Harald Frentzen even in 4th position. He needs something dramatic to happen to Frentzen to get into the podium positions. However, Schumacher just going to try and bring it home here. And Mansell has caught up to Berger once again, and with 14 laps to go, the gap is down to just a second. Surely Mansell has a chance here on Berger. There is the Austrian, and there is Nigel Mansell, Il Leone in the background. A great race starting to form between these two now as Schumacher dives in on Patrese. This is a proper thriller and a nail-biter to the end of the Grand Prix here. I wonder if there might have been something to do with a wheel nut. We're being told that there was a loose wheel nut on Mansell's car, so he had to come into the pits and fix it. He had a loose wheel, so it wasn't done up properly at the last pit stop, so he dropped to 3rd, and now here he is coming back at Berger. The gap is only half a second. So Nigel Mansell is doing his best to get back on terms and get back into the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix as we watch Eddie Irvine almost a minute behind the leaders. But Mansell's got his chance here. All over the back of Gerhard Berger. Will he dive in the next right-hander? I think he's got to go for his favourite overtaking move into the chicane. Nigel Mansell will not wait. Berger is going to make him wait. Brilliant racing. This is for the victory in the Hungarian Grand Prix on lap 65 out of 77. And Gilles de Ferran now dropping back consistently from Frentzen into the path of Eddie Irvine's Ligier. He's got to be careful too. Mansell hangs back a little on Berger. He's got time. He doesn't want to rush this move. So Berger will have Mansell battling away with him down the main straight as they complete lap 65. And surely Nigel Mansell is going to have another crack at Gerhard Berger. Here we go. Final turn. And Mansell will get a fast run off the corner. The Ferrari's got good horsepower, so too is the Honda in the back of the McLaren, but surely this is going to be Nigel Mansell making his bid into the first corner, and Nigel Mansell retakes the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix of 1991. A brilliant charge back from Il Leone, 12 laps to go, and he leads once again at the Hungaroring. That was inevitable for Nigel Mansell. After that loose wheel nut put him back in the pits. Fixed the car. And he's been driving angry ever since. And here he is back in the lead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. If I was the Ferrari team, I probably wouldn't tell him, to be honest. As Mansell now dives through up the inside of Carl Wendlinger's Jordan. And that puts a little bit of a blockage between himself and Gerhard Berger. Perfect in terms of the timing for the British driver. And now he just needs to scamper away run away and hide, and the win is yours, my friend, as Wendlinger gets out of the way of his fellow Austrian, Gerhard Berger. So Berger goes through. Wendlinger finds himself down in the outskirts of the top 20. But he's in the top 20, but he's just not anywhere near as competitive as he would like to be. And certainly not as competitive as his teammate Andy Wallace, who finds himself in 12th. There goes Mansell, having got well clear now of Berger. Look at the way he's pulled away as well. 2.7 seconds he's made up in the traffic. So Mansell taking full advantage of his cunning and guile to work his way further forward. And now Schumacher driving up the inside of Arie Luyendyk to get past the Arrows. So some fabulous performances then from the Arrows crew. Still having a very tidy race of it. But there is Schumacher in third position, the Ferrari. Still working the magic of the boat. And there is Nelson Piquet about to lose ground to Nigel Mansell. Mansell has cunningly and outwittingly lapped Piquet for a second time. Although officially it's the first time. Because obviously he passed him the first time to put a lap on him, and then he had to come into the pits again to sort out the wheel. But Nigel Mansell has well and truly taken this race by the throat. And now Berger trying to dive his way through the traffic without causing too many headaches. That is Eddie Cheever that they have just been lapping, and Naoki Hattori has been lapped for the second time. Such has been the great pace shown by Nigel Mansell in this one. Berger round the outside of the Honda of Naoki Hattori as Stefano Modena doesn't cause too many headaches for Mansell. He gets out of the way. And there are 10 laps to go in the 1991 Hungarian Grand Prix. Truly brilliant drive from Nigel Mansell. But it's not done yet. You never know. You never know. So, a very tough race, but a very convincing one from Nigel Mansell, who's been absolutely supreme all the way through this competition, still battling away. So, a great race battle, and still Mansell chipping away at his lap times and stretching out the advantage over Gerhard Berger in the McLaren. Schumacher in third, Frentzen in fourth place from De Ferran, Irvine, and then the final point scorers are set to be Piquet, Luyendyk, Alboreto, and Patrese. So near and yet so far for Gugelmin in the Lola and Wallace in the Jordan. But Gerhard Berger, second position, still trying to keep the McLaren going. That's how they've been able to perform so well through the course of this season. They only have one win at McLaren, but they are so good at scoring points when the car is on the track. In fact, this is an incredible statistic, but looking at the McLaren team, when they've brought a car home, the worst race they've ever had was at Monaco, when they brought one car home in 10th position. But they had second and third in America, second in Brazil, second at Imola. Yes, they had 10th in Monaco, and yes, they had a retirement in Canada, but they had a 4th and 7th in Mexico, a 3rd and a 9th in France, 2nd and 3rd in Great Britain, and a win in Germany. So Berger looking at second place here. That'll be another 12 points to add to the tally. That'll take McLaren to 131 points. But then you'll have Ferrari on 130 points. And if Mansell's fastest lap stands, McLaren and Ferrari, unbelievably, will actually be tied for the lead of the Constructors' Championship. That's how tight it is at the top between McLaren and Ferrari. So Berger is now 10 seconds back from Mansell. Can you believe that? I wonder if Berger's actually got a problem coming. Or is he just being held up in traffic that much? But certainly Berger no longer a factor in this Grand Prix win, is he? Mansell's just disappearing up front. See you later. So Berger working his way through the traffic. Look, he's lost another second in the last sector alone. So Berger clearly struggling in the traffic, but it might not be that long before Schumacher has another crack at Berger. So I wonder if the McLaren is actually in dire straits in the closing stages of this race. Certainly the top 10 looking very close. But it's Mansell in front to Berger. What a fantastic situation for Nigel Mansell, and this puts him right back into the hunt for the Drivers' Championship. Berger in second, Schumacher in third, Frentzen in fourth from De Ferran, Irvine, Piquet, Leondijk, Alboreto and Patrese, with Gugelmin and Wallace desperately trying to hold up. But this is a really solid race effort from Berger. 12.7 seconds. And Schumacher's losing the time as well. So Berger and Schumacher, second and third position, just hemorrhaging time to Mansell, who's just in a class of his own here. He was determined he was going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix, and another 0.8 of a second that Mansell has taken out of Berger on that sector of the lap alone. Nigel Mansell just dominating. Wow, that really is quite astonishing. So still they battle. But it's looking pretty sorted and pretty straightforward, isn't it, for Mansell to win this one from Berger. Berger is hemorrhaging a lot of time now, 14 seconds back, but Schumacher's losing that time too. So it's still looking pretty tricky. But Mansell in front of Berger, then Schumacher, then Frentzen, and then De Ferran. But Berger and Schumacher are both losing time to Frentzen, actually. Frentzen's only 10 seconds away. So Berger and Schumacher are clearly trying to fight for the win themselves. They've burnt out their tyres big time, and they are just losing time rapidly. So there is Michael Schumacher in third position in the Ferrari. He's losing a second per lap to Mansell, and Berger is losing a second lap to Mansell. Frentzen isn't, so that's quite critical. And there's Patrese being lapped by Hightower Frentzen. So it shows you just how hard Berger and Schumacher were working to keep Mansell at bay, because their tyres are just screaming at them now as Chiva gets out of the way to let Michael Schumacher go back through. 23 seconds back from Mansell now, and Berger is 15.7 seconds back as Naoki Hattori in the Honda is going to have to get out of the way here and allow Schumacher to go right round the outside and get back in front of the Honda, which is slowing. Eddie Cheever wants to get his Eurobrunn Ford into 14th place ahead of Naoki Hattori. One of the few times he's going to have the opportunity to in a straight fight. 6 laps to go for Nigel Mansell. Berger in second place, Schumacher in third from Frentzen and De Ferran. But a really exciting battle coming to a conclusion here at the Hungaroring, and Nigel Mansell has made it very, very clear. Get me on a good day with a good car, with a good circuit, in the good frame of mind, and I'm the king of Grand Prix racing. Nigel Mansell set to become the 7th different winner from 10 races in 1991, following in the footsteps of some big names. It's been a very busy season. He's followed in the footsteps of Michael Schumacher, Thierry Boutsen, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, Michele Alboreto, and Alessandro Nannini. Nigel Mansell is about to become the 7th different winner if he keeps it together. 5 laps to go, 16.5 seconds clear of Berger. Piquet moves over and gets out of the way of Gerhard Berger as well. A rather difficult and awkward situation there. And I can tell you something quite sensational from the pre-qualifying. We've also had a lot of different winners from pre-qualifying. Carl Wendlinger, Aguri Suzuki, Eddie Cheever, Roberto Guerrero, and Naoki Hattori and Andy Wallace. 6 different winners from 10 races in pre-qualifying as well. There's Michele Alboreto, 9th position, getting out of the way and letting Frentzen in the Tyrrell go through. But Alboreto really wants to score more points than 9th place can give him. If he can catch up to Arie Luyendyk, he's got another shot of moving up a place. But Gerhard Berger is doing everything he can to keep in touch with Nigel Mansell, and it just isn't going to happen. Nigel Mansell, 4 laps to go in the Ferrari. All he's got to do is bring it home, and there is the move from Frentzen to get past Carl Wendlinger to lap the Jordan. Of course, there's always scrutineering to take into account. You never know when the race is over if there's another team that's going to get investigated for this or that or the other. But certainly for the time being, Nigel Mansell is your race winner incumbent on lap 74 out of 77. Gerhard Berger looking to put a smile back on the faces of the McLaren team with 2nd place. But with a first and a third and the fastest lap and the pole position for Ferrari, Nigel Mansell cleaning up here at the Hungaroring with a dominant run. And with Schumacher finishing third, that would put the Ferrari team dead level with McLaren on championship points heading to the Belgian Grand Prix. It would be a tiebreaker between the two biggest and oldest teams in Grand Prix racing, Ferrari and McLaren. And through they come. Nigel Mansell about to start, lap 75. Just 3 laps remaining for the British driver in the Hungarian Grand Prix at Budapest. An excellent run in this one from Nigel Mansell. He has just been so determined. He's had problems all season long, but he wanted to ensure that this time he was not going to lose the Hungarian Grand Prix. And there comes Gerhard Berger, still staying a consistent 9 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher's Ferrari. As he comes across the line, he's lost another half second in Sector 3 alone to Nigel Mansell. Just cleaning up. So it is going to be a Ferrari 1-3 with Berger in second place. Then the Red Bull Tyrrell of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, half a minute in front of the new boy Gilles de Ferran in the Porsche Williams. Eddie Irvine in the Ligier will be ahead of Nelson Piquet in the Arrows. His teammate Arie Luyendyk will be 8th. Then Michele Alboreto in the Lotus and Riccardo Patrese will be 10th in the Ligier. A lot of double finishes in the points this time, particularly for Ferrari, for Ligier and for Arrows. But there is Gerhard Berger in the McLaren, just keeping it nice and tidy, and that keeps his championship hopes firmly on track, because with a second place finish he will end up on 68 points, overtaking his teammate Alessandro Nannini in the title fight. Schumacher will finish third. That'll give him 10 points. That'll put him on 72. That will put him back into the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Patrese is coming home for 1 point, so he'll end up on 48, just 3 behind Senna. Alboreto is going to come home for 2, so that'll put him on 47, just 1 behind Patrese and 4 behind Senna. As Frentzen laps one of the Arrows cars again. I have a feeling that one is Piquet. And Nigel Mansell taking the win, pole position and fastest lap if it stays this way is going to give him 59 points in the championship. That's going to put him just 4 behind Nannini, and it will put him 13 behind Michael Schumacher. The championship fight will be red hot. So Nigel Mansell is going to finish this Grand Prix 21 seconds clear of Berger and half a minute ahead of Michael Schumacher. It wasn't that long ago that he stormed out of the pits enraged with a loose wheel. And he has extended that gap almost back up to a free pit stop again. Nigel Mansell, just extreme domination here at the Hungaroring. I wonder if Senna will be watching this with a very interested glint in his eye. There's been a lot of rumours about Nigel Mansell for 1992. A lot of people saying he wants to stay at Ferrari, knowing they've got a competitive package underneath them now. Frank Williams has not made it terribly secret that he would love to get Nigel Mansell back in a Williams again. Even McLaren, Ron Dennis has seen that Nigel Mansell might have something, but Frentzen working his way through there in 4th position. He's only 10 seconds back from Schumacher, a little bit more time and he could have got himself onto the podium. But certainly up in front, Nigel Mansell is going to put himself back into contention. There he is, the Ferrari driver looking strong here. He knows he's got a championship battle after this race if he can bring it home for the victory. If he can bring it home, he's looking a little bit pathetic at the moment because he is absolutely romped to the victory to become race winner number 7 out of 10 starts. And Frentzen going around the outside of Naoki Hattori in the Honda. We really hope the Hungarian television director takes us back to Mansell in time for the finish line, but we have seen him at least on the final lap as the drivers come through to finish off in fine style the Hungarian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell is going to come out of the final turn for Ferrari. We're still watching the back markers. We shouldn't be. Berger is in second. We go to him because Nigel Mansell wins the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'm not quite sure what the director is doing, but Mansell comes through to win the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring. There is Gerhard Berger coming through for second place. The McLaren gets the job done in P2. So 23 seconds Mansell gained on Berger at the end of all that. And Schumacher will come through for third position. Well, we did see the leader on the final lap, I suppose. That's got to be their argument. But Schumacher comes through for third position ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari wins the 1991 Hungarian Grand Prix for Ferrari and kickstarts his championship assault. Excellent work for Nigel Mansell and a truly sensational drive. Berger in second place gets the job done in fine fashion here. A brilliant work performance from Gerhard Berger, who comes home in fantastic fashion. But what a result for the Ferrari team. They can be so happy with that. They have now tied with McLaren in the Constructors' Championship race. And it finishes off in fine style here at the Hungaroring. So Nigel Mansell becomes our race winner in the Hungarian Grand Prix from Berger and Schumacher. Then Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Tyrrell. Gilles de Ferran is fifth for Williams. Then Eddie Irvine, Nelson Piquet, Arie Luyendyk, Michele Alboreto, and Riccardo Patrese scores the final point. Mauricio Gugelmin and Andy Wallace come home next from Stefano Modena in 13th and Naoki Hattori in the Honda in 14th place. The four of them 2 laps behind the race winner Nigel Mansell. Then Eddie Cheever and Carl Wendlinger, the last 2 cars home. Suspension failure for Collard, oil leak for Barrichello, gearbox failure for Nannini and Matsushita. Then Hakkinen with a water leak, Herbert with a suspension failure, transmission for Warwick, electrical failure for Fernandez, gearbox for Brundle, and the big crash on the start put out Mark Blundell in the Benetton Porsche. Nigel Mansell sets the fastest lap of the race and dominates proceedings here at the Hungaroring. Pole position, fastest lap, race win. It wasn't quite the Grand Slam, but he still scores the maximum 17 points from an exceptional Hungarian Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher takes the lead of the championship, his Ferrari teammate, but Ferrari are alive and kicking in this title fight as we head to the next Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. It's going to be a classic. I'm Jake Sanson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in Spa.